Hey Girl Talk family, this is your host Charline, and today we have in studio with us a friend to the show, Prophetess Branchcomb. She is currently the Vice President at SODEXOMAGIC, an international partnership with Sodexo and Magic Johnson. Prophetess Branchcomb has a master's degree in tax and an MBA in finance. She's married to her wonderful husband Adrian for 15 years. She owns Sound Profit Tax and Finance. She has owned this company for 20 years with over 600 returning clients in 48 states. She is amazing. She has a passion for women in business, international missions, and traveling. Today, she's going to give us all of her secrets on the road to her level of success. So we want you to come along with us for the ride. Hi, Prophetess Branchcomb, and welcome to Girl Talk. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm so blessed.
Girl, look, you have had so much going on in your life within the last year in particular. But I just want to take the time to go over all of the things that you've been accomplishing recently and how you set yourself up for success, because Girl Talk wants to know. How's that?
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Now, you were recently promoted to the Vice President of Finance for SODEXOMAGIC, right? And so within the interview, we're going to talk about that promotion, what company that is, and what their services they offer, okay? So first of all, because now I know that as an entrepreneur, because you're an entrepreneur and you're a successful corporate business executive, now those are multiple streams of income. Did you do that on purpose, or did it just kind of fall into place for you?
Absolutely. I was back in college. There was a lady, a mentor of mine, who told me about creative ways of making money.
Okay.
And she told me that I could pray and ask for that. And so being in college, I was trying to find every means of making money. And so it just became this concept around you don't always have to have just a day job.
Right.
I would do things like I signed up for focus groups. I started volunteering, but then, looking for small engagements to do like inventory. And so I just always was seeking out new ways to teach myself new skills. But at the same time, I always valued the fact that I needed something consistent with that those benefits. And but I also just had something burning in me around business ownership. And I think it's just when it's in you, you know that it's not something that can ever be satisfied. You'll be working on your job, but there's a piece of you that isn't being fulfilled. And so that was something that was just, again, started out as more of a how do I make money, but then it really sparked in me that entrepreneurial spirit. So
I like that, because a lot of times as women, we get into corporate America and we get a job, and then we give up on our dreams, our passion, the things that we want to do for ourselves as business. And so to hear your story is going to be really inspirational for women who not only have a corporate job, but also have a passion to do something outside of that job. Mm-hmm. So again, I am so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Now, Vice President, when you were told that you were going to be the Vice President of Finance for this very lucrative company, how did that feel? Take us through those emotions.
It was humbling.
Really?
I believe that I was at a point in my career to where I knew I had worked to earn it, but I also saw it as an opportunity now for me to represent a platform and to make sure that other women reach the places that I did. And so it wasn't one of those things where the first thing I was thinking of was what's happening with my pay. Mm-hmm. It really just went around, I started thinking more around what it means to be a servant leader, how, now my role is not just to represent what I'm for, but then also to really, show other women and minorities, how to do this. Within the job, I didn't understand the magnitude of the position. SODEXOMAGIC is a partnership, but we're based out of 80 countries.
Wow.
With the segment Sodexo. And so when I realized that in those 80 countries I was the only woman in finance to have a VP title in this position, it really made me understand that it made sense why I was working for many years and being the only woman in the room,
yes,
around the table, how it showed me how to have a voice in those spaces. And so I think all those things coming more full circle was just really humbling. It just felt like I've worked to get here.
Yes.
And so it was really great. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I know that as a woman in business, you know, we strive, just like the men do, mm-hmm. to get to that level of competency and success. Mm-hmm. And so to hear how you felt about it as a woman is always important to our listeners because, you know, as women, we operate on many different levels. Mm-hmm. We operate not only on an intellectual level, but also we operate on a compassionate level, and we think about those who we can bring along with us. So it's good to get to hear that said by someone. So thank you. Now, you wear multiple hats. You're a wife, you're a mom, you're a successful businesswoman, and you're also an entrepreneur, which creates a lot going on in your life. How do you juggle all of that?
Time management, having a good device, and also just realizing that I can't remember things. And so I have really learned how to use tools, online tools, to keep myself organized.
Okay.
I really also believe that I had to learn to forgive myself and just realizing that it's not all going to get done. You know, that the to-do list it's a goal, but you know, it's, sometimes goals don't get achieved in the time frames they're set out.
That's right.
So I think having that patience with myself, but then also just keeping things in priority, especially with my children. There's some times where I just can't physically be here,
right.
And so I do try to make sure that those times that I am here, that I'm not as tired, or I'm finding things for us to go and do and engage outside of the house. Mm-hmm. Just creating memories, because I do feel like that that's really, you know, work is going to end eventually. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm never going to get that time back with them. And so that's important. I think the same thing with balancing my husband too. I mean, all the family has needs, and he has needs as well. And I think over the years, he probably has been so gracious to be pushed a lot of times to the bottom of the to-do list. But he is really my foundation, I think, in terms of keeping our family going. And
that's
so it's just, you know, finding those moments to honor those things. And also, I think it's important for me to balance that girl time too, finding that moment to release. I found it restores me as well. And so I can't say there's a secret to time management, other than the fact that I think now is just the biggest principle is that I can't get it all done. So just figure out what it is that's going to have the most lasting impact, and try to get that done.
Yes, because I think, like I said earlier, we try to do it all. Like, we think that we have this magical power of creating more hours than there are in a day, right? And then, you know, becoming tired and exhausted and not having anything left for the family. So creating memories and creating times when you spent time together and taking those pictures and you know, being just instinctive about knowing what your family needs are, because every family is different, you know, and that's a point I think I'd like to make here too, is that no two families are the same. So what works for your family may not work for someone else's family, right? And so we have to give ourselves, like you said, permission to be who we are, and also to know that our family is unique and their needs are unique. And so creating memories about the uniqueness is, I think, one of the best things we can do.
That's powerful what you just said, because I think sometimes as women we're like, when we have straight hair, then we want it curly, and then we have curly hair, then we like, we want it straight. And I think, you know, my family structure is very non-traditional, you know, being a full-time corporate executive as well as owning a business that 3 months out of the year I pretty much disappear from. It creates an environment to where my husband and I, our traditional roles don't look like most traditional roles. Right. And I think that has been something to where, as women, we have seen over time to where we tend to be the ones that are outside of the home, that are the primary financial support in the home, and the dynamics that creates, and still trying to have that partnership in a marriage, and at the same time having to look at what you as a child grew up and said, you know, I want to grow up and marry a man that provides and does all these things. And when you have children, different phases of time in life, that doesn't always look the same. And so that is something that I've had to learn and continue. My husband and I continue to work through it. We haven't figured it out. But I think that nowadays when we think about women, you can't overlook that. And so when you were just talking about that, how it doesn't always look the same in situations. So,
but you know what I respect about your generation, because you're a lot younger than me, and the thing that I love and respect about your generation is the fact that you don't think it's supposed to be cookie cutter, and you do figure it out, and you don't take the roles within a marriage as this one has to do this and this one has to do that. How can we make this work as a unit? And that's something that I respect, that I think that you guys do more than we did. And I think there was a big cost that we paid for that because we didn't know how to do that. And so what I see in the family right now that's, to me, encouraging, and the thing that I respect is that your goal is to make sure that the children grow up in a happy household with two parents that love them and that's going to take care of them and make sure they get to where they need to go, because that's what the real bottom line is.
Absolutely. It's just hard. It's just hard work in the process.
It's a hard work in the process, especially with a two.
Man, I'm keeping it 100. Absolutely, it is hard.
Oh my goodness.
And do we talk about having a 2-year-old? So my husband and I have 4 children.
Right.
My oldest son is inherited. He's 22. I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And we thought it was a good idea to have a baby in our 40s.
Oh, wow.
And I think that changes the whole dynamic too, because
she's in charge.
She's in charge. And we're supposed to be at that stage in lives where it's like the older two are old enough to make breakfast and we can go away for the weekend. And so it has made us again shift back into now diaper mode. And so it does it. I think that's what keeps our bond together, though. It is really the focus on the kids. My kids wake up every day. They're happy to see their mom, but they're looking for their dad just as much. And so that is key and important. And so I wouldn't really be able to do what I do without his support.
That's good. That's real. Now, what advice would you give someone, a young woman, at the beginning of her career that's trying to figure it out? What piece of advice or pieces of advice would you give?
For me, if I could go back and just really tell my old self things, I would definitely say valuing things like having a vision and a plan. I think before I never took the time to really write down and see what were my goals. And now I really understand when they say, write out your vision and make it plain. You have something to go back to. And so I think that's definitely key, because then you have a direction.
Right.
I also think you have to be ready to deal with the valleys, right? The road is never going to be straight and it's never going to be uphill. And so the fact of just getting used to that ups and downs and being in it for the journey, I think is so powerful. Understanding that early on. And then I would say the last thing is just really the power of networking.
Yes.
I think a lot of places when I was younger, the rooms that I would be standing in, I didn't know the words to say, and then later on you're like, wow, if I put that together, then I think that it was because I didn't have the confidence that I needed at that time. But I really do think that there's power in networking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like those. Definitely. Now, what does wellness mean to you? Because you've got a lot going on.
Yes. Lately, wellness has been trying to remember to drink water every day. Get some sleep. Definitely sleep is so key. It is so undervalued.
Really? Yes.
And maybe it's because I have a 2-year-old who she's 24 months now. And she breastfed up until probably 18 months. And so that overnight, having an irregular schedule was really tiring. And then my body, from traveling back and forth the East Coast to West Coast, there are often times where I'm sleeping on planes, I'm not coming. And then when you come home, I'm restful, I'm not getting a good night's sleep. And even sometimes just when you're at home working, you're just so worked up from the day, you just really... It takes a time to actually
just come down from that.
Just to come down and to really, find that peace and rest. And so I definitely say that that's the wellness for me has been trying to focus on health, but also the sleeping component. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what is your personal favorite self-care practice?
I'm gonna selfishly say going to the spa.
Me too.
Because
me too.
Yeah, and it's really because someone else is preparing it for me. All I have to do is to have an appointment to
show up,
like,
that's right.
and it's that moment to where I don't have to do any talking. My eyes can be closed. I can snore if I need to. Like, retail therapy doesn't do that. You know, it's like
that's another level of anxiety.
That's another level, exactly. So, but I definitely say spa, and it's just, and more importantly, I think in those moments too, because what I do a lot in that time is meditation.
Yes.
And I think that's really the peace of the mind that I'm seeking for when I think about, that's what I go there for, is to escape that. It's just really to have that time to reflect, to have your thoughts, and to just really sometimes think about nothing.
Yeah. And that's a relief in and of itself.
It's such a relief.
Yeah. So meditation, I've recently found as being just that way of quieting your mind and just helping you to like refocus and bring everything back into balance, right? Yeah, that's a good one, meditation.
I'll tell you, when I think about meditation, for me, and I think a lot of women will resonate with this, your mind is thinking so much.
Yes.
And so when I first started trying to practice meditation, I always saw in my mind like a subway. And when you think about how fast the cars go by, and you see the little black space in between, like it was just zoom, zoom, zoom.
Right.
And the practice of meditation was really teaching me how to slow that down and to try to expand that black space.
The black spaces,
right. And it's almost like you're pausing the subway. And so when you think about that sometimes your mind is racing. But finding that space, and it's not always through meditation, but just however that piece, sometimes it's just praise and worship or just a quiet moment. But finding that time to think nothing is so empowerment. I think it's invigorating. So
absolutely. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, you are working from home these days.
Yes.
How is that working out for you? Do you love it? Do you not like it? Are you trying to get used to it? What is going on with that? Because I know I have my own story about working from home. But what is your story?
Well, I love my commute at 7 steps. And I'm always overdressed. So, I mean, there are definitely some strong positives.
Always on time.
Always on time, right? Actually, sometimes I'm late, though. So I'm like in there cooking lunch and trying to get on a call.
Right.
Actually, I believe it is the best thing if you're disciplined and if you're a disciplined individual. I work a lot in finance and spreadsheets, and so in my work in my workspace, I actually have a 2 big 20-inch screens along with my laptop, and I have one of those desks that rise, and the Vera desk that you can stand up, and it allows me time to just focus because I'm looking at numbers. I'm really doing a lot of analysis, and so having quiet and having that time to just be able to just respond to people, it works for me.
Right.
I also think that it's great because I can drop my kids off every morning. I'm picking them up. If someone forgets their lunch, sometimes I'm taking them lunches during the day.
Yeah.
I think it's those things that have really allowed me the flexibility to do that. I think about the commute time. If I'm in the car for an hour, I'm usually either trying to check emails or answer my phone around work services anyway. And so I think that also has, it allows me a lot more productivity time. And then I think my job is unique because we're actually based out of Washington, D.C., Maryland area. So the time difference, if my call started at 6 in the morning, my day is over at 2. It allows me a lot more flexibility to where I just walk downstairs, I can get going right away. So
yeah, I like that, because I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question, because you are based here, but your corporate office is the East Coast, and then you guys span 80 countries. So time can be your friend, but it also can be your enemy too. So how do you work that out? Are you responsible for being on calls in different time zones sometimes? How does that work?
Yes, absolutely. So our joint venture partnership is actually a U.S. based account. Okay. However, SODEXO, which is the other partner within the joint venture, they are based out of 80 countries. So that's really our corporate arm. And yes, we have global deals. We just sold an account where they're based in the U.S. This is where their largest locations are. But that company has sites in 67 countries. Wow. So this was my first really global engagement where I spent a lot of time having to be on calls, working with our London offices, getting a chance to, like you said, understand different time zones.
Right.
I also, they did a lot of calls based on the East Coast time, and it's just something that I've grown accustomed to.
Right.
I worked as a stockbroker for a long time, and so I've always had to kind of be up
adhere
early.
to
East Coast hours.
Right.
So that, I think the biggest thing that I learned about the distance and working in countries is culturally. When you're working on a phone, you have to introduce yourself and build rapport a lot differently.
That's very true.
And so I think that's a dynamic it's interesting because you're learning new cultures, but then phone etiquette is a lot different,
That's
dealing
right.
with different countries, and so I love that. I actually enjoy that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was working around the clock, 3 a.m. I'd come downstairs. It was great for me because I looked like I was productive all the time. But I'd be walking by my laptop and someone would send an email and I could respond right away. Right. And I think that it was just around the global partnership too. When you're working to try to transition a large account, everyone just kind of works according to what needs to be done for the client. Right. And I think it's that team approach that I've just, over time, there's never a bad time, to reach me. So
plus, as a mom, you learn how to use that team approach when you have more, especially when you have more than one child.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to group the team together. They're different ages. They have different, focuses. And if you want everybody to come together, you have to figure that out. What's the best time? What's the best subject? The etiquette? How all of that works, right? So definitely.
Very much applies.
Very much applies. Now, explain to we talked last night for a while, and we were talking about the boardroom. So now that we're on that corporate side of the conversation, and we talked a little bit about boardroom etiquette. What does that mean for you, being a woman in finance and the vice president at a company that we're going to talk about a little bit more? But what does that boardroom etiquette look like for you?
This is a great question because early on in my career, I knew that I wanted to be in the C-suite. Yes. When we talk a little bit more about my education, I mean, that I wanted to go to school to find a subject that no one else wanted to talk about in the C-suite. That I was like, there's always going to be a need for this.
Finance.
Finance and tax especially. And so that was very intentional. And I think what I began to see once I started having those opportunities to be in there, I would always get in initially as the note taker, right? So I started to realize that the board rules weren't what was important. It was the unwritten rules.
That part.
The unwritten board rules.
That's right.
That made the difference. And I think, especially as a woman, because traditionally it's all men sitting around the table.
That's right.
And they talk. They have, network meetings offline that we just never hear about.
That's right.
And I think that I really wanted to understand how a woman's presence needed to interact differently in the boardroom, how our voice had to be heard differently, and how sometimes we had to assert ourselves differently. And those just weren't rules that you find in the, the protocol books that says you start the meeting and everyone's, votes. And so it was those things that I really found that as a woman leader and an executive, that those made the difference.
Yes.
Now I say it's as simple as it's thinking about when you're walking into a boardroom, it's like me welcoming you into my home. You're a guest in my home. So I want to come and sit down at the table. I'm not going to talk too much, right? I'm going to watch the etiquette. I'm going to follow your direction. If you want to have tea first, or do we go straight into appetizers? I think it's learning that graciousness to where sometimes you don't know all the rules, but you got to be keen to watching and really observing. And because you want to be invited back.
Exactly.
and you also better,
and it's optional.
Yeah. and I also think that if you're sitting at the table the whole meeting and you don't have anything to say once outside of your speaking part to engage at a later time, I think that was another unwritten rule that was important, that I had to I had to have my voice heard on other topics.
Yes, definitely. I like that, because we talked about that just a little bit last night, and that was so key for me, because, you know, as women, being successful, we have to learn how to be successful in every arena, and the boardroom is a place where we are venturing into more now than ever. And so you're right, we have to assert ourselves and find our way in without creating so much disruption that it takes away from what we're there for. So I appreciate that tip of advice. But yeah, and I'm going to ask you more about that offline, because I think a lot of women really are struggling in that area with etiquette in the boardroom. That's a big deal.
Yeah. I have one more thing to come to mind for me is, and I think this is not just board meetings, but I want to make it practical for all meetings that most managers and director level leaders are attending. It's also about finding champions and sponsors before you go into the meeting. So if it's your first time and you know who's the invitees on the list, sending an email, I'm excited about meeting. I mean, I never like to walk into a meeting to get agreement on something without knowing that 2 or 3 people are going to agree with me ahead of time.
Right.
Because you want the support,
That's
but
right.
then also you want the guidance. You know, you find out information. Oh, well, make sure in this meeting we're going to talk about this. And so I do think that was something that you can apply to all meetings, just making sure that as you walk in, you know the partner, that they know you.
That's right.
And that you have time to think about it. Because for us, I think as women, preparation is a part of our confidence.
Absolutely. 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 I like that. Preparation is a part of our confidence. Absolutely. So now, you have had mentors and coaches throughout your career and life. What impact do you think that's had on your success?
They have really been a key part of the success in terms of guiding me through the process. Again, having someone that you can talk about how to prepare for board meetings, how to really further your career. And I think that's one of the key areas when you think about mentor relationship. You really want direction around trying to reach your goals. That's not always just working within the corporate, America job role. And so I think it's also important to have multiple mentors.
I agree.
The other thing that I always kept in mind is I didn't want all mentors that were the same color as me. I wanted mentors also who were male. And just over the years, I found that each provides a different set of insight and viewpoints when it comes to how to face challenges, how to move things further along. And I think that has really been very, very important. I also think those relationships have been the best. They've given me the best feeling when I have been having those moments of success. I mean, it's nothing like calling a mentor and just saying, what we talked about last year, it happened, it's finally here.
Yes.
And so just having someone along that journey, I think, has also been very special because they're invested in you. And I also think that it allows me to be better prepared to mentor others.
Exactly.
And I think ultimately that's the key. The knowledge I have is not meant to only reside with me. It's meant to be given to others. And so I just think that spirit of paying it forward has really supported me through the process. It's helped me get through difficult times. And it's also redirected me when I've kind of gone astray. You need someone to sometimes kind of give you that stern shoulder, and it's like, maybe we can do it another way. And
just try a different way, a different approach.
I know you're passionate about that, right? But and so I mean, I think that those it's just key to having outside of your family support network. So
I like those answers, because I think mentors for me have done a great deal, and I love what you said when you said diversity. Having diversity in your mentorship so that you get more than one perspective, more than one look at it, a different angle, just a different approach maybe. It's always nice to add diversity when you're looking at mentorship, male and female, and people of different races. It all comes together and makes this nice pot of stew, right? Yeah, absolutely. I like that. So now, we talked about this too. Social media, being camera ready. Okay. What do you think? Do you think we should show it all, or just the good stuff? Just the stuff, the perfect looking stuff. What do you think about that?
See, so me and social media, I I find that it has its purpose.
Yes.
I believe that it should be only for showing good things.
Okay.
Because, well, and good could be difficult times too, in the sense that sometimes people share news where they need support.
Yes.
I think where people start going on the deep end is when they're putting things out there that they don't need to see again in 5 years. Like, so when I think about my social timeline, I see it as more of a storyboard. And so, sometimes it's like, yeah, I remember last year we did this and we were together in the family. And so I think capturing those moments are important. When we lived in Indiana for the last 7 years, we were away from family. And so social media was our only way to see what was going on with that. And so I appreciate it for that. But I do think sometimes when we use it as a vehicle to kind of express our feelings, to hurt others, I think that there should be more rules of the etiquette on social media. But I do think, for me, I only want to remember the good times. And so that's how I just see. But social media sometimes, I feel like it can be overwhelming. I describe to my friends sometimes, it's like a roller coaster of emotions. Yes. You can scroll down. One person's extremely happy, the other one's extremely sad, the other one's mad, and this is going to make me laugh. And so I think that you have to just take it in doses too.
Yes, I agree with that. But it just made me laugh because when we were talking about it, in the context that it was in, you were talking about how, you know what, I just want to be able to scroll back 6 months or a year and see all the great things. This is more for me than for somebody else.
It is.
Right?
And it is. That's for me personally, because I'm the person that doesn't like to look at myself in the mirror, so I kind of like walk by when I'm getting I'd much rather be in front of some spreadsheets and numbers looking back at me. And so I think whenever I see social media, I look over my page and it's mainly a lot of my kids. And it's because I want to see what they've been doing, and just it's kind of like my eyes to say, oh, I remember that moment and stuff. So yes, it absolutely is for me. You won't see any times too much negativity on there, because I'm not trying to capture and have that on my page 5 years later.
Right. Now, SODEXOMAGIC, right?
SODEXOMAGIC.
That's the company you're working with at this point.
Yes.
And so one of the main owners of that company is Magic Johnson. So what I'd like to ask you is, what is Magic Johnson doing about empowering women in business? Is he doing anything over there with his company?
Absolutely. So SODEXOMAGIC, it's a joint venture. Mr. Johnson is the majority owner. He owns 51% of the company. And then the other partner is SODEXO, which is an international company that does food and facilities management. And so when you think about everything from your elementary schools to high school, those lunch programs, we provide food. We also do stadiums, and so when you go to the basketball games and stuff, those stadiums were there. We're also in universities. We were in a few of the historically black colleges, where we provide the meal services for the dorms, and then we also do the stadiums for a lot of the football games.
Nice.
We are actually also doing a lot more partnering in the facility management space as well. How we directly, through that partnership, work with women and minority-owned businesses, the whole focus of this joint venture is to allow corporate partners to actually receive what they call Tier 1 diverse spend. And that's important in the corporate space, because the company has made a commitment to saying we want to make sure that we're spending dollars impacting communities, women of color, minorities, and just disadvantaged populations. And so I think that starting that partnership was a vision that Mr. Johnson had, but to really partner with SODEXO really shows a commitment on the corporate level. What we do within the joint venture is that we actually try to identify subcontractors who are women-owned businesses. So if women have businesses such as janitorial cleaning businesses, or they have companies that do painting, landscaping. We're looking for facilities management services. We also have an arm with the food side, so we also look for women who have food manufacturers, so farmers, who grow, who can become part of our distribution network.
Wow.
We look to try to identify those contracts as well. Traditionally, when you think about facilities and janitorial, you think,
you think men, right?
You think white men, older,
right.
And so it's a market to where Mr. Johnson is saying we want to make this commitment to minorities. We want to find minority farmers. We want to work with businesses, waste disposal that we have, and really bring these big contracts to our communities.
Yeah.
And so that's the commitment is there. We partnered with one of the large women networks. Is called WeBank, and it's women minority business owners. And so through that network, we again try to identify women-owned businesses who are looking for these contracts and who also have the scale.
Right.
A lot of our accounts, we service accounts in all 50 states, and so when you think about having a food distribution or cleaning services, you need sometimes to be able to do it in multiple markets. So we're looking for that. But we're also looking to just identify small businesses and teach them how to become minority certified and the importance of that, and how to go and approach a company like a SODEXO, how to get within their vendor management system. And so I do a lot of that in my capacity. So.
Wow, I love that. And it would be terrible of me not to ask you this question, because I know that women listening to this podcast, watching this on YouTube, or seeing the clips on Instagram and Facebook, they're going to want to know, how did you get to the place that you are in this company? How did you get Mr. Johnson to hire you as a part of his A-team moving this forward? What was that journey like? If you could just tell us a little bit of that journey. You went to college, and then what happened? And if you can just give us that in like a little concise manner, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so actually when I was at UCLA doing my undergrad, I had a friend who worked at the Magic Johnson Enterprises, and at the time Mr. Johnson would have this annual charity big charity weekend was called Midsummer's Magic.
I remember
and
that.
he would have a lot of celebrities and performances, but it was really about raising funds for his educational scholarship fund at that time. And so I was brought in as, again, the numbers girl to kind of make phone calls to make good on all those donations that the foundation was supposed to receive. So I started out as the bill collector there. But it was really to support that cause, and just through that, just got to know a lot of the people through the partnership. And then fast forward, I went back to get my MBA in grad school, and it was an interesting story because I had secured an internship, and we went away on an overseas trip. And during that time on the trip, they called me and said, there was a problem with your background check, and so we're not going to be able to give you the job. And so when you talk about sometimes how there is success through failure, that moment of knowing that I was in a foreign country, I'm being told I had already met my new boss, I was going back to start, and it was like, nope, something didn't work out, so you don't have the job. And I remember calling the career services person at USC, and she said, don't worry about it. She said, I know how you are. By the time you get off a plane, you're going to make a call. You're going to have this figured out. We're going to figure this out. And when I came back, I reached out. I called their offices and talked to the lady and said, could you use an intern? And she said, absolutely. Matter of fact, we need someone. And so, come on. So it was truly the perfect timing through the bad situation that really landed me in the place at the time that I needed to be. While all my other MBA interns, my counterparts were making $80,000 over the summer, I was working for free, and I was sort of close to free. But at that time, I knew that the opportunities that I would be exposed to with working with Mr. Johnson at this time, he still had a lot of his brand outlets with Starbucks and the theaters, and so the opportunity to really see what those financial deals, how they were structured, was something that it was an opportunity of a lifetime. Little did I know. And so I did that for 2 summers. I came back, usually only have 1 summer. I came back the second year because I decided to get a second master's in business tax. And so I said, this isn't normal, but can I come back? And absolutely. And so just really created that relationship there, just willing to roll up my sleeves and create a job. What do you need was kind of my mindset. And I think it built a reputation for she can do a lot of things around numbers. And so after I worked in healthcare, I left corporate America and came back, and this job was open. And the president of the company, I had reached out and said, hey, I saw this job, I applied. And she said, I think we filled it, but let me check. And then the next thing I know, I received a call. And so it was just, I really think sometimes you just don't know how your pathway to success is going to look.
Yes.
And I talked earlier about being able to go through those valleys and knowing that it's not a straight uphill battle.
Right.
And I can say that this is what my journey has been. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I want to know, so what's next for you? What do you see next?
Now it's about continuing to harvest the seeds I've already planted in other women.
Yes.
I have spent a lot of time working with small business owners. I don't think we even touched on that.
Yes.
That's
why you're going to have to come back.
we will, because I'm about how do we make it.
Yes.
I really want to spend a lot more time focused on women entrepreneurs.
Okay.
That's something that I do already in my tax practice, but I would love to be able to actually work more with women who are actually starting businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of decisions that are important up front that help really provide that foundation. And so for me, it's just about legacy. I'm also excited about working on an all-women's team within Sodexo, and we're excited to take this to $1 billion company.
Yes.
Annually, right now, we do a little bit over $500 million, and so we're excited about the next few years. So I'm excited about that success. And from there, it's just really seeing my kids grow.
Mm-hmm.
That 2-year-old, having more time and focus with her.
Yes.
So.
Well, Prophetess, I want to thank you so much for
Okay,
coming
we're
in
finished.
and being my guest. Yes. Yes, you've been an amazing guest, and you already promised to come back.
Yes, I didn't know I'd talk for a whole hour.
See, look at that. But you know what? When the information is great, the time passes quickly. And this has been an amazing, amazing interview for me, because it just furthered my appreciation and my love and respect for you. So thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
Well, Girl Talk family, this has been an amazing interview. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and we'll see you soon on Girl Talk. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the subscribe button below.